Hello and welcome to Gin with Gwyn. I'm Oliver Gwyn, and this is where I give you my off the cuff and unrehearsed thoughts on marketing philosophy. And this week, data, because I'm asking, can analytics find me a wife? Now, I'm sure it will shock and surprise all of you with a face like this that I am actually single and looking for love. And yesterday was Valentine's Day, and so I thought this would be a fun way of looking at cohort analysis and data through the lens of my own dating experiences. So I joined Hinge on the recommendation of the ladies in my book club. Hi, if you're watching, middle of December last year. And so I have some stats about my dating and my approach to this, but it's also a really good indication of how I look at data problems. Now, we should start this by saying, of course, dating is a matter of the heart and not a matter of numbers, always. But still, this can show us how to optimize towards a particular goal. The first point I have is that you should have a goal. Easier said than done in many cases for many businesses. Do you know what you want? Now, in the world of dating, this is more difficult than it would seem. A lot of people don't want to tell you what they want, or perhaps they don't necessarily know themselves. They say, oh, I'm just seeing what's out there, and if something good comes along, and they don't want to put that on their profile. But for me, this is not a problem. I'm looking for a wife and children and a serious relationship only. And so I know exactly what I want, and I know the general time frame of when I want those things. And so I then have to move on to my second question, which is, what is the easiest or smallest signal that I can find that's readily available towards this goal? That's the second thing we should always look for if we want to grow our customer base. How can I tell that my customer base is growing? If you want to increase the revenue, how can I find the high lifetime value customers? And in my case, I decided that the number one thing that I'm going to match towards or optimize towards is people who have want children on their profile. I decided that because there's many people who have open to children, but the people who actually are willing to say want children, I think they take things more seriously, and I'm serious about kids, and so I only want to optimize towards those people. The next point is when you've got your goal and you've got your signal, and you also have to have a philosophy of how you're going to go about achieving this goal. What's important as a factor? And for me, time is a finite resource. I've only got so many hours in the day. I'm doing 12 other things all the time. And so time is quite a precious commodity. And so I need to optimize everything to finding the right person. Of course, that might take lots of time, but I need to try and get rid of the wrong people quite quickly. The next question in there, now that I've got my North Star and my philosophy, is what do I control in the process of finding love? Well, I can control my profile, I can control my messaging, I can control, I guess, the larger conversation in general. I can control the destination that we go to the dates, and I can generally control how the dates take place. Of course, that's with the other person is always involved in that process there. And I can choose who to reject. That's a really important and powerful thing when you're dating and you want to protect your time and find the right person. And it's important to think of this in terms of a brand is we all have offerings, right? I have an offering to people and the kind of hobbies and interests and life that I have that might be applicable to other people. And I don't necessarily know who I'm going to attract based on that. I love going to restaurants and I love finding new places and eating food a lot of the time. I'm a big foodie. And so I've attracted a lot of people who like food, but maybe if I was into grunge metal, that would attract a different kind of person. And if I could get sentences out, maybe that would help as well. So I'm going to share with you a Sankey diagram that I had Claude make up for me. Just give me a second. We'll just present this. Cool. You should be able to see that now. So I decided, on the advice of the ladies in my book club, to basically do a cohort of people. What is a cohort? It's people I have matched with in a set amount of time. And why is a cohort really important when you're thinking about analytics? Is when we just look at a funnel overall, we consider that everybody at every time is more or less the same. But that is really not true in life. We all know that there are seasonal ups and downs There are times when customers are more likely to spend versus they're not. And so we all have some sort of time-based differences in the groups of customers that come into us. And this is very, very true in dating, of course. Now, this particular cohort one, I started dating in the middle of December. And of course, a big factor here was that Christmas holidays were coming up. And so there was a bit of disruption there, but it was a good chance to sort of test out messaging, test out dating, get it back into the scene, and then take that to the next step. So I have divided here my dating data into the people. And I'm also going to go into a little bit about what each of them are. So I decided to do cohorts of 20 people because I just don't have the amount of time to keep chatting to that many people. And I want to give people proper time and attention to see if they're the right person for me. So 20 people was my cohort. And so I had 20 matches here at the start. And of course, the first stage is talking online through Hinge in particular in this case. And I was able to get rid of a lot of people just through this. So I got rid of 8 people at the talking online stage because they were too slow to reply. I had deemed that if you are serious about dating, you will take it seriously. And I appreciate that women, you have thousands of matches, and men only have a couple of hundred if you're lucky. But if you didn't have the time to reply for me in a week, you were unmatched basically. So I got rid of 8 people out of the 20 just based on that. I got rid of 2 people. I put ATM here. These are people who specifically said early in the conversation that they didn't do 50-50. They expected the man to pay for everything. I don't mind paying for things on dates in particular, but I think it's a bit weird if that's your second message to somebody to say, oh, by the way, I expect you to pay for everything for the rest of our lives. It's a little bit odd. And I think if you're a full grown person and you make your own money, it's a bit of a weird expectation to have in life that your partner should have all of the financial burden. Personally, I see relationships as a equal partnership where you both have input, you both need to sacrifice together, you both make decisions together, and of course, part of it is that you have shared goals and shared finances in the end. And so, 2 people, I think literally in the second message, one person was like, "Oh, by the way, I don't do 50-50. I know what my value is," type of thing. And I was like, okay, we're probably not a match because philosophically, I believe something different. One person obviously just wanted casual sex just from the talking online. That's not what I'm interested in. So they were got rid of. And then one person I just deemed that they weren't particularly serious about what I was serious about, which was marriage and kids. And so we managed to get rid of quite a few people just from talking online. And we were left with 8 people who were asked out to a short date. Now, the purpose of the short date was really, I think when you meet people in real life, it's often different. Sometimes you have a really good chat online and then the vibe just doesn't match in real life. And why a short date? Just again, protecting time. And to some degree, I don't mind paying for a meal. But when you sit down to a meal, it's like an hour or two. And so short coffee dates are a good way of getting to know people quickly and you don't invest too much time. And it's respectful of the other person as well, because they're also very busy. So of the 8 people here, one person showed up, didn't look anything like her profile at all. I mean, I literally looked at her profile and then she showed up in real life and I didn't realize it was her. She didn't talk about the same things as on her profile. I asked her about them and she had completely different opinions. So I put her down as a catfish. It could have been another woman. Maybe I had a date with somebody else, but yeah, I deemed that they were a catfish basically. One person after the first date, just too busy. I asked them, it was a concern of mine. I think they were a nurse. And I said, oh, do you really have the time to date if you're working 12-hour shifts, 4 days a week? I guess you'd be exhausted the rest of the time. They said yes. I followed up a few times. They didn't reply. When they did reply, they were very apologetic. But I said, obviously, you're too busy for a relationship. 2 people I deemed not serious at this stage. So when I got to know them a little bit and had a chat, they didn't have answers to some basic life questions about what their plan was. I got rid of them at that stage. And one person, I thought they were a good match. They definitely wanted what I wanted, but there just wasn't a spark there. And so from that 8 people of the short dates, we then were left with 3 people who went to long dates. And these people actually went to another date as well, all 3 of them. And then off the 4th date, one of those people just seemed to be interested in casual sex. Now, you might be thinking, well, sex is maybe normal at the 3rd date here, but this is a person who talked quite heavily about it, but I kind of gave them the leeway because we were talking about other things as well. But as it went on, it became more and more obvious that that's what they were interested in, and I didn't think they were really busy. They could also be in this not serious category. There was another person who was too busy. I was fooled because it was Christmas, and again they had more time off, so we got to do a couple of dates really quickly. But then after this, yeah, too busy. And one person is sort of still in the mix after this. But coming back to my philosophy about time, if we've invested a fair bit of time on this point, we're talking every day, we've gone on 4 dates, and we weren't quite sure about each other at this point, probably we're just not a match. And I guess that will eventually come down to no spark. Now, as interesting as this might be, you might be thinking, well, how does data come into this? How do we then optimize? And we go back to what can we optimize? So, cohort one, not very successful. And I think one of the things that stood out is on my profile, I had made it quite clear, in my view, what I was looking for, that I wanted marriage, that I wanted something serious. But the data here shows you that there were still a couple of people who wanted casual sex, and there were some people who were not really serious. I don't think some of those people knew that they weren't really serious. And so I actually put more prompts on my profile just to try and get rid of those people. When you match with me now, this also says another message about, hey, I'm taking it seriously. If you're not taking it seriously, if you're not going to reply, don't even bother matching with me. So hopefully that will be an improvement in the next cohort. What else did I do? The casual sex thing, I if I get any sense of that early on, some people, of course, are a little bit flirty online, but if I get any sense of that early on, I normally now purposely will say to somebody, hey, just to let you know, I like the fact that we're flirting, but I want to make it very clear that I'm quite happy to wait for that. I only want a serious relationship, blah, blah, blah. And I think already I'm seeing some more positive results where I can tell that people are what they're really interested in. I did have one person on here, and I should have added this to the diagram, who was married. And I was a bit annoyed with that. In fact, they were one of these people who got to the end of here. So they had multiple dates with me and then confessed that actually they were in a relationship, which was very disappointing. And I don't know why you would waste somebody's time like that. And so coming back to improvements, I saw this first cohort. I realized that I needed to make it even more obvious what my proposition was. So even though I felt at the time when I first did my profile, it was quite obvious, I enhanced that to bring that out. I took a viewpoint that it was okay to ask earlier on in the conversation about, this is specifically what I'm looking for. If you're not looking for this, please go away. I'm trying to now actively scare away people. And this is not a bad philosophy when we are dealing with prospects either. Sometimes time is our most precious resource. We want to keep people warm. That's the thing. We always want to keep people in the pipeline. But if they're not ready, we don't want to spend loads of time chasing them. We want them to say no to us in a lot of ways. And so that's really important. And so what does this show us about how do we look at data? The first is we don't know who we're going to attract into our proposition or a business. We can only know that after some data is in there. But if you don't have a framework in mind for how are you going to track what is important to you, then you're not going to be able to optimize. I was able to think about, why did I discard these people? Why didn't it work with these people? And then optimize based on that. But if I wasn't thinking about that, if I didn't record it in any way, shape, or form, it wouldn't have happened. So that's really important, is you think carefully about what do you need to capture so that you can optimize. And the optimization can only ladder up to decisions that you can make. I have limited control over my profile. I could decide in the future if my next cohort is more successful and I get more serious matches. Hopefully, I won't need a cohort 3, but maybe if I do, I could consider, okay, my matches are now better. Let's spend some money on Hinge X or whatever it's called. Let's pay that to enhance my profile. Once you've optimized your bottom of funnel, it becomes a lot easier to justify the spend on top of funnel. So those have been my cohort analysis on dating. And I would expect the next cohort to be different because we don't have that Christmas in between, which would disrupted normal sort of working patterns. One of the people who was sort of too busy, I didn't realize because they had time. And so now represents normal life a little bit better for most people. If you're interested in being my wife, apply in the comments below, and I'll be sure to look at your profile on LinkedIn, which is how I based most of my dating decisions. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this interesting. My opinions on the dating scene today. I haven't been on dating apps apart from outside of work for 7 years. Do I think that things have changed in that time? Yes, maybe. I think that one of the differences I found 7 years ago is that people generally wanted more chat online before they were willing to meet you. People seem tired of chat online now. They've got enough people that they can talk to. They're more willing to go out on that first date, which is better for me. I personally prefer that. I like to get to know people in real life. I think people are more upfront with what they want. I was surprised that people wanted to say about, hey, by the way, you should spend money on me and all that kind of stuff. Okay, if that's what they want, I guess it's better to be upfront and optimize towards the people who are willing to do that. But I'm not sure that that's a great thing to do on your second or third message. Even your employer, who knows that you are there for the money, you don't say that in the job interview. You know, prove that you're the right person, and then talk about those things maybe. And I know that there's a lot of memes online that women only want money and all this kind of stuff. I never encountered that before this time, and yeah, it was a bit odd. There was one person who literally was like, I was saying to her that I'm hoping to enjoy life more this year because last year I bought an apartment and that's, my spare cash was not so big after doing that and buying all the furniture. She's like, oh no, I don't want to date somebody who's already talking about being poor. And I was like, yeah, that was last year. And also that's a huge red flag. So that did catch me by surprise. And then last but not least, in things that have changed, I think I'm in a different location than I used to be. I used to be in the north last time I was dating people online, and it's a smaller pool of people. I think generally you are more willing to give people a second chance if the first date doesn't go well. You're more open. I've always been a very open person and transparent about how I'm feeling and what I think and all that kind of thing. I mean, I have loads of stuff online that you can find out about me. So between this and my music, you can find out a lot about me. I'm very indexable. So there's no point in hiding anything or playing games or anything like that. But London, of course, it's a more transactional place. There's a lot more fish in the sea. And so maybe it gives people the opinion that, hey, I got 20 matches and I can get 20 matches again quite easily. And so people are perhaps more fickle and ruthless. If the things aren't 100% right, just get rid of them easily. But for me, I'm kind of in that state of mind as well. I also don't want to spend time on the wrong people. And the danger with that is, of course, maybe I missed the perfect person and I just need to give them more of a chance. This is the risk that we take in life. But again, if I'm optimizing towards the fact that time is finite, then I can only give much time to so many people. Hope you enjoyed this off the cuff look at cohort analysis and tune in next time for some more Gin with Gwyn.